Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We're super excited to be able to share the stage with all of you. My name is Tomas. I'm one of the speakers that will be leading this workshop, and together with me we have Renuka.
Hi, I'm a Renuka. I'm a Renuka Kelkar. I'm a Flutter JDE, and I'm a DevRel advocate at Inverters. And here I'm talking from the Flutter side, and Thomas is talking from the Firebase side. So
yes, I mean, it's going to be like two ways. We're going to be able to share insights with you about building scalable and secure apps with Flutter and Firebase. So we're going to focus about this combination of these two amazing technologies that we believe are a perfect fit for each other. I always say that I think Flutter and Firebase are a match made in heaven. And there's a number of reasons why I say this. So yeah, I'm Tomas, or Tomas in Spanish. I come from Uruguay. It's far away, so I had a very long trip. But yeah, I'm very excited to be here in Berlin. I'm a GD for Firebase. I've been working with Firebase for almost 5 years now. And I use a number of Firebase services. Obviously, in this workshop, we're going to assume, right, that everybody who's attending has Flutter knowledge and has some sort of Firebase knowledge. You either use Firebase in your day-to-day jobs or in your side projects, or you might be interested in Firebase. This workshop is not going to be like Firebase for beginners, okay? We are going to assume you have some understanding of Firebase, especially Firestore, so we can actually show you some advanced concepts so you can take the most out of this time. So yeah, I mean, before we get started, as Renuka mentioned, she works for Invertase. I am now part of Very Good Ventures. I founded a company 5 years ago called Create Thrive. We were focusing on Flutter and Firebase, and actually a week ago, the official announcement was public because our company got acquired by Very Good Ventures, so we're now part of Very Good Ventures, and it's also super exciting to be part of that company and bring all of the Firebase expertise to their current Flutter expertise as well. So before we move on to the next slide, I'm very interested to know, like, and maybe you can raise your hands, who of all of you use Firebase on a daily basis in your projects, either professionally or as a hobby?
nice.
Fantastic. Yeah,
We have a really good crowd here.
yeah, so I think we're good on that. That's great. So we're obviously not going to explain the basics of Firebase here because that would be redundant to most of you. But we're going to be explaining some advanced concepts and techniques in order to take the most out of Firebase, right? So why don't we start with Firebase and Flutter, right?
Yeah.
This combo. What do you think about it, Renuka?
So basically, I think when I start learning the Flutter, when I start creating the UI, then the next step is that to connecting to the database. And obviously, like a Flutter and Firebase go hand in hand with each other. So I started learning the Firebase. Like if you build a small application, it's good fit for you can use the Firebase. But I'm a little bit worried if I want to do the scalable application, like I want to build the e-commerce app or any other kind of application. So how is the picture of the Firebase in that sense?
That's very interesting. Obviously, Firebase and Flutter are both Google products, so both teams are working closely at the Google offices, making sure that the compatibility between both is working as expected, is successful. But often when I speak with developers, I always hear like, okay, Firebase is great for getting started. You know, like if you go to the Flutter documentation, if you want to set up a quick backend, you have the Firebase links there. You have the Flutter Fire libraries, right, which are fantastic, and your company is actually maintaining, which is great. But most of the time, I hear these developers say, well, you know, Firebase is great to get started. It's great for MVPs. It's great for proof of concepts. But when I want to scale, it's not really working for me. And I mean, I think it's fine, like to say that. But sometimes when I ask why, and I start to listen to the reasons why they think, I think to myself, well, but if you do this and this and that, you shouldn't actually have those scalability problems or those like pricing problems, right? Yeah. So I think it really depends on the use case. Obviously, Firebase is not a magical solution that works for every problem. Obviously, as a Firebase GDE, I try to advocate for Firebase, but I have to be realistic, and it's not always the perfect solution. But having said this, most of the time, I think, and going back to the next slide, if you apply certain pricing strategies, if you apply security rules, if you apply caching techniques, I think Firebase, depending on the domain of your app, right? Because Firebase offers like NoSQL databases, Firebase offers you a lot of stuff, but it lacks some stuff. But assuming the domain of your app matches, for example, a NoSQL database and all of that, I think if you apply best practices and Firebase standards, it's likely that Firebase can be a good fit for you when it comes to scaling, when it comes to pricing. It's not always the case that with Firebase you cannot scale properly,
so
or your
the developers, like when they start creating the application, then you have to select the plan, which plan you have to select to do the scalable application, and all the rates and pricing. And I think that scares the developer. Should we put my card details into that or not?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the answer really depends, and the answer is related to how Firebase pricing works, right? So, obviously, we have a very friendly free tier with the Spark plan that has no costs at all. And then we have the Blaze plan, which is the standard plan, which is pay as you go. So, in Firebase, for example, if we were to pick, let's say, a service like Firestore, you would pay as you go. You would pay for what you use. So, translating it to actual data, you would pay for the number of billable reads and writes that hit the server, right? So the more reads and writes hit the server, the more you pay. So most of the time, developers are questioning themselves, so my app will scale a lot. It will have a lot of reads, it will have a lot of writes that will hit the server, and it will blow up my credit card, right? But this is not always the case, because you can do stuff, you can do things when you're coding that prevent certain reads or writes hitting the server, which will obviously lower the price. When it comes to scalability, Firebase scales automatically, and Firebase runs on top of GCP. So obviously, it's on demand, right? For example, Cloud Functions, the more you use them, the more instances automatically. Obviously, you can set minimum instances, but you wouldn't have like scalability problems. Not per se. But when it comes to pricing, it can be tricky. So here we're going to see different techniques and strategies in order to avoid blowing up our credit cards, basically,
okay,
right?
That's great.
So my first tip, okay, when it comes to avoiding hitting the server and avoiding increasing the number of billable reads or writes, is using the Firebase emulator. Quick question. There were a lot of hands that were raised when we asked who of you were using Firebase on a day-to-day basis, either in their works or in their side projects. And now I think we'd be interested to know who of you actually used the Firebase emulator. I think maybe 10 to 20% of the people who raised their hands are using the Firebase emulator, which tells me that maybe
you can tell more about that?
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
To use
so
it,
I believe it's not that well known.
Yeah.
So the Firebase emulator, basically what it does, it emulates the Firebase services locally. So when you run the emulator, you can run these services, for example, authentication, Firestore, real-time database functions, etc. If you run them locally, in your code, you're going to hit the local services. So for example, authentication runs on localhost port 9099. Firestore runs on localhost the port 8080. So if you do that, when you're developing in your local environment, when you're testing with authentication, when you're testing with Firestore, you're not going to hit the server. Thus, you're not going to be increasing your billable reads and writes. And that obviously lowers the billing that arrives at the end of the month, right?
So I have one question. Like, let's say now I want to build the application with the Firebase extension. Can I use the Firebase emulator to use that
Absolutely, absolutely. You can use the Firebase emulator to also emulate the extensions. Now that you bring up extensions, it's very interesting to know. Extensions are quite new when it comes to Firebase. I mean, not quite new. You can use extensions, and it's been some years now that you can use it. But the extensions marketplace, for example, is something new. Building your own extension is something new. Those of you who use Firebase, there were a few of you who used the emulator. How many of you have used any sort of extension?
Oh.
Wow, not a lot.
I think tomorrow there is a talk by a workshop by the Puff, and he's going to talk about how to create your own extensions.
Yeah, so Puff, Frank van Paffelen, and Iman, who is the Firebase extensions lead in Firebase, and then Darren from Invertase, they're going to do a workshop of how to build your own extension. So if you're interested in Firebase, attend that workshop tomorrow. Here, we're not going to show you how to build your own extension. You're going to see that tomorrow. But here, we're going to show you maybe how to use one extension. Because as a developer, I can say for sure that extensions will save you guys a bunch of time, right? Like there are a number of features that our apps may probably be using, and you don't need to actually develop that feature from scratch. You can use an extension, you can install an extension, and you can leverage somebody else's code or a company's code in order to do that. So you don't need to maintain the logic, and you just use an extension. And for the record, you're going to see this tomorrow, but extensions, Firebase extensions, are just cloud functions that can be instanced in multiple projects based on a certain set of configurations, okay? So, this is the first tip, right? Like you want to lower your billable rates, use the emulator. You're not going to hit the server, and that won't increase the billable reads and writes in Firestore. It won't increase the quotas in cloud functions. You use the emulator, and you're going to save a bunch of costs. Obviously, you shouldn't use the emulator running production apps.
Yeah.
That would be a very big mistake. So we still have the problem of how to make sure that a production app that's going to scale to thousands or even hundreds of thousands of users are not blowing up our pricing, right?
That's true.
So the first tip is for our local environment and for our development environment, but then let's move on to what happens in production, right? So for that, we've prepared for this workshop a Flutter and Firebase app. I'm going to pass it on to Renuka to explain a little bit more about how this app works, and then we're going to do a demo.
Yes. So we have built this application. Let's consider I have my own ice cream shop, and now we are in the Berlin, and the weather is really good. So my shop is very popular, and there are so many people are buying the ice cream from my shop. So we have created a simple demo for that, and we have used the authentication. So the user will log into this app, and then we just created the add to cart functionality. And in that cart to cart functionality, we just need to add the whatever product I want to buy it, I just add to that, and then we will see like how we can just make this application scalable. And maybe my shop is like a favorite shop in whole the country. So let me show you the demo of this application, and then we can go through what are the new. Thomas is going to tell us that what are the new tips and tricks to make it more scalable, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you who brought your laptops, you can scan that QR code, and that will take you to the Flutter demo that's using the Firebase SDKs in order to add authentication and Firestore.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So give us 2 seconds so I can just shift my laptop. Okay, so this is the application I have created. It's a simple application. It's a simple Flutter application where I have created like a sign-in functionality. So for the demo purpose, I have used here the anonymous sign-in from the Firebase. So you can just if you scan the QR code, you can get all the code for this demo. So this is the sign-in screen I have created. Once you click on the sign-in, you are on the dashboard screen. So in the dashboard, we are just reading the data from the Firebase database and just showing the data here. And if I want to add some products, like I want to add some sugar-free ice cream. So I'm going to check if the ice cream is there. So you can see that I can add more items as well. I can add. So this is how I have created this simple application. And once you, I want to scalable this application, and Thomas is going to talk about this, how we can scalable this application. Because right now I feel like if I want to, hundreds of customers are coming to my shop at one time, that time is Firebase is useful or not, how it takes that thing and how much pricing goes up because of that. That is what my question, Thomas, for you.
Exactly. So if you see this app, basically, as Renuka was mentioning, we have an ice cream shop here in Berlin, for example. And we want to make sure all of our clients can access our app, can see all of the flavors that we have. We can have almost 100 ice cream flavors here, so 100 products. And there are categories, right? So I can filter by category. Maybe I have organic ice creams. Maybe I have gluten-free ice creams. And then I have a cart. So I can add my favorite flavors to the cart. And then obviously I can buy them, whatever, right? So yeah, I mean, obviously if I have thousands of users accessing my ice cream app, or even hundreds of thousands of users, if I have the data in Firestore, which obviously I have, it's gonna definitely increase the number of reads. Not too much writes, because writes would be adding to the cart, but that obviously can be something that can impact. But if you add 2, 3, 4, 5 items to the cart, it shouldn't be a problem. But if you're reading I don't know, let's say between 50 and 100 ice cream flavors, and you're reading them all the time, and I have 10,000 users, 100,000 users, that can definitely blow up my reads. And that can definitely have a strong impact in the way we're using Firebase. So yeah, obviously we need to do something about it, because if not, we're going to have a very big problem when it comes to pricing.
Yeah. So maybe you can you can show from your side how it works basically.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. In the meantime, make sure to download the code on your laptops, and you can follow the techniques that we're going to be doing right now.
Have you everyone scanned the QR code? No? Let me share the slide so that you can slide. Sorry about this glitch. We have to shift the laptops. Okay, this is the QR code.
Yep, here we have a QR code. All right, so before we get started sharing some techniques, let's think about possible scenarios here, right? And in this particular moment, we're gonna use a scenario that somebody from the Firebase team proposed. His name is Mark Duckworth. He works on the Firestore team at Firebase. So he proposed a possible scenario of build reads estimation, right? As we said before, we have this ice cream shop in Berlin. It's blowing up because it became viral on TikTok, and now I have hundreds of thousands of customers that want to try my ice cream. So let's assume we have 10,000 monthly visitors, okay? So if we have 10,000 monthly visitors, I'm doing really well with my business. And let's say that on each page, right, because we have different pages for the ice creams, we have organic, we have gluten-free, we have no sugar, whatever. Let's say we have around 25 ice cream flavors per page. And this is a possible scenario, right? Maybe analytics from my app gave me this data. Each user, each monthly visitor, let's say loads 3 pages every time they're browsing my app, and then these pages get refreshed around 5 times. This is a normal scenario, right? When you're browsing a web application or a mobile application, maybe you have different pages, you refresh the pages a number of times. So if we multiply these values, right, 10,000 monthly visitors times 25 items per page times 3. Maybe you saw 3 pages of ice creams, and then you refresh these pages around 5 times on average. You get around 3,750,000 document reads, which is a lot. Obviously, it's not like blowing up, right? But it's a lot.
But it's cost a lot, right?
Well, actually, if you go to the Firebase pricing page and you go to the calculator, it turns out it's not a lot. Okay, so if you go to the Firebase pricing calculator and you go to document reads and you put here 3,750,000 reads, it's like $1.38 a month, which is nothing, to be honest. So Firebase is very friendly.
I'm the shop owner as well as I'm a developer. That's why I'm worried about the cost.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, what do you think, Renuka? Are we okay then?
Yeah. Let's see.
But obviously, you know, our business will grow because it became viral. So we are going to have more than 10,000 visitors per month. Maybe we have 100,000. Maybe we have 1 million. Or maybe we have 10 million because the whole city of Berlin is accessing our app every day because they want to try different ice cream flavors every day. You know, when things get viral, they actually do get viral.
If I want to add the new flavors every day, like because if my shop is very demanding, then I need to add some new things.
Yeah, you need to be changing the flavors every day so that you can keep up with the demand and keep up with the TikTokers that are uploading videos of my ice cream shop. So we definitely want to have a successful business. And that can be a problem, right? Because if we start having more and more users, this will certainly blow up my pricing because we thought, okay, with 10,000 monthly users, we might be having around 3 million reads, which should be fine because it's like a couple of bucks a month worth of costs. But what if we have 100,000? What if we have 1 million visitors per month? We might be able to see bills on a monthly basis that can be like $20,000. Maybe even like more, maybe even $50,000. So that is scary, right?
So what is the solution for that from your side?
I think the solution is running out of business and shutting down our app because we are not going to be able to pay for the costs. Like it's impossible, right? Like you cannot make that much money selling ice cream, right? I mean, obviously that's not the answer. Let's do something about it, right? So the first thing is let's think about this possible scenario, right? Like my ice creams, they are selling like warm bread every morning, right? My store is blowing up, but to be honest, the ice cream flavors, they're not changing every minute or every hour. Like maybe every morning I have a new set of flavors, right? Maybe even not every morning, but for the sake of like this example, let's say that the ice cream flavors are changing once per day, not more than that. And this is very optimistic, right? Because they probably change less frequently. But let's just assume that my ice cream flavors are changing once a day. So I know that once a day, every day, I'm going to have a different set of flavors, or there will be differences. But not every minute, not every hour. So do you think there's a solution for this?
Yeah, maybe. Like, let's see what you are coming up with some other things.
So let's come back to the problem, right? So the problem is, can I reduce build document reads? The solution is this one. We can refresh the catalog from the server only once a day, and every other time load from the local cache. Do you follow me here? Do you understand why? So if the data is changing only once per day, should I be reading the data all the time from the server? Or should I just read it once from the server, save it in a local cache, and every time I want to access the data again, I can just read from the cache,
so
right?
So what do you mean about this? Like, should I have like a local database for my application? Like, or I share preferences, I can save the data there? What is your thing? Like,
Right, so the good thing about the Firestore SDK for Flutter is that you don't really need to maintain a local database. The SDK saves copies of the documents that were read from the server, and they are saved in the local cache in the Firestore SDK for Flutter. So we don't really need to implement anything like out of the ordinary. We don't need to import a new like local database or a local package. We can do this with the Firestore SDK, right? So for that, actually, what we can do is we can do client-side caching for Flutter using Flutter and Cloud Firestore. Do you want to explain a little bit more?
Yeah, actually, you can use this cache. It's a default one for the Android and iOS application. So you don't need to add any extra functionality for that. Like, let's say if I am buying the ice cream from my cart, and suddenly my mobile internet goes down, okay, and I still want to add something into my cart. So using this cache technique, so the Firebase gives you that facility that I can add the product in my cart, and once my internet comes again, it will send all the data to the Firestore automatically. So you don't need to wait for that once you are getting the data, like a connection is there or not. So I think this is a good functionality from the Firebase side.
No, yeah, absolutely. So when you do a get to Firestore using the Firebase SDK, you can actually pass to the parameters, right? The source of the data, right? So what we could do in our app, for example, is we can say, okay, so if this is the first time I'm querying the data, the source will be the server.
Yeah.
But if it's not the first time I'm querying the data during the day, we can query it from the cache, because we know that that data is not going to change, because the ice cream flavors are not constantly changing. They're only changing once a day. So if I log in for the first time with the app today, I will be getting the products from the server. So the source will be the server. Otherwise, the source will be the cache. So every read that I do with Firestore, that's not the first time I'm reading the data in the day, is not going to hit the server. And that means that we are decreasing the number of billable reads. So before we had 10,000 monthly visitors. These monthly visitors were loading about 25 items or ice creams per page, and they were browsing like 3 pages per day, right? There were 5-page refreshes in average that our data was giving us from our analytics. But now there's only 1-page refresh. Why is that? Because there's only one retrieval of data from the server. The other ones are taken from the local cache. So now actually instead of times 5, it's only times 1. And if you do 10,000 times 25 times 3 times 1, that will give you around 750,000 document reads, which is obviously much, much less than the 3,750,000 document reads that I had before. So this is already a technique that's saving me millions of reads, which is obviously a very big deal. So I think we're done now, right?
I don't think so, Thomas.
Why?
I'm not convinced yet the everything. So let's say like I'm using the cache now, right?
Yeah.
But I have so many customers, right? Every day there are so many people are buying ice cream from my shop. So is there so much pressure on, like a loading pressure on the cache? My app gets slower and slower or something?
Well, I mean, now that I think about it, it's true that even though we have our data in the cache now, and we are hitting the server only once a day, and then after that, every time I refresh a page, it's going to hit the local cache, and that will not increase the number of billable reads, because billable reads are the ones that only hit the server, not the local cache. But if you think about it, like every user is accessing the same ice creams, because the ice creams change only once a day, but every day, the ice cream flavors that I offer in my shop are the same for every client. It's not that, John will see some flavors, and then Jake will see other flavors, and then Simon will see other flavors. No, everybody sees the same ice cream flavors every day. So we are already caching our data in our mobile devices or in our web device browsers if we are using Flutter Web, obviously. But what if we would be able to somehow reuse that server retrieval of data for each user, because each user is reading the same data.
Is it possible? Is it possible?
Well, let's recap. Let's recap here for a second. So, could we keep reducing the number of billable reads? Because we still have this problem that we haven't solved, right? Like we still have like 750,000 document reads each month, which obviously it's not a lot if you think about like only 10,000 monthly visitors. But if we had like millions of monthly visitors, that can blow up badly. So yes. We are reading the data from the server, and it's the same data for each user. And this is the problem, right? I'm still querying the server daily for each of the 10,000 visitors. And there's actually a solution for this. I can query the product catalog from the server only once a day and share the results between users using bundles. Has any of you heard about Firestore bundles before? 1, 2, 3, 4? Okay, this is fantastic. Great. So this is a solution that Firebase offers. Here it is. And these Firestore bundles are packaged results of common queries on Firestore. They allow an application to load data quickly without querying the backend, thus saving billable reads by loading from cache. So let's take a minute to explain a little bit of this. The first technique was to use the local cache, right? Instead of reading the data from the server every time, we read the data from the server only once per day, and then every time I refresh the pages, I'm reading from the local cache. That already saves a decent amount of reads, of number of reads. But then, if we keep thinking about our problems, we came to the conclusion that the data that we are showing the users is the same for every user. So why don't we use bundles in order to get the data from Firestore only once per day, and then provide that data to all of our users without the users needing to go to the server to query it? So this is what bundles are made for. We are packaging the results of the query of the server, and we are serving it to all of our applications. Obviously, just an explanation won't be enough, so we are going to definitely show how that works.
So what is it means that like I'm using this bundle and I can send the data to every user? What is like how it works basically?
Yeah, so this is how it works basically. You need to create a bundle, right? And then you need to serve it to your clients. So there are many ways you can create a bundle. But traditionally speaking, what you would do is, imagine you want to serve a bundle like once a day. So first step is create a cloud function that runs once a day and uses the Firebase admin SDK. Using the admin SDK, we run the same query that our clients would be running for the product catalog or for the ice cream catalog, and we get all the ice creams of that day. And then we generate the bundle file for my product catalog or for my ice creams, and then we put that in cloud storage. Okay, so the bundles are just really like querying the data from Firestore or from the server, from a backend or from a cloud function. With the data, I'm going to create a bundle, which is a file, okay, and I'm going to put that file in cloud storage. So that is one of the steps that we need to do. We need to create a bundle on the server side. The next step is to load the bundle from the client side. If we load the bundle from the client side, the data that's in the bundle will be copied to the Firestore cache, and we can read the data from the Firestore cache. And we don't need to hit the server for that. So we only hit the server once inside our cloud function or inside our backend. We read all the data there, all the ice creams. We create the bundle, we create the file, we put it in cloud storage, and then our client apps, they don't need to go to the Firestore server. They just need to load the bundle, and then the data will be loaded into their local cache instantly.
So, but if like let's say I'm like a beginner of the Flutter app developer, or I don't know that much about how to create a cloud function and other stuff. So is there any easy way to do that? Like any beginners can use these techniques to make the app scalable? Yep,
there is. Obviously with code, we need to do some stuff. We need to create a cloud function, or you need to write some code on the server side. Most of you are probably Flutter developers, and you may or may not want to deal with server-side code, so we understand that. If you were to deal with server-side code, here's how you build a bundle. So first, you provide an ID for the bundle. After that, you create the bundle variable using firestore.bundle. This is, by the way, a JavaScript code, because it's like a cloud function that's written in JavaScript. Then you specify which queries you want to get data from. And now that you have the queries, you create a buffer, which is adding the snapshot of the query to the bundle, and you use the function build. This buffer then can be saved to a file, and that file can be uploaded to cloud storage. So as Renuka mentioned, like, if you're a Flutter developer and you don't really want to deal with all of this, it can be a little bit like annoying to have to create a function that runs once per day or with a frequency that you want, create the bundle, create the buffer, create the file, upload that file to cloud storage. So these are a lot of steps. And there is another solution that we can use in order to make our lives more simple. Before we dive into that solution yet, I just want to make sure everybody here understood the concept of bundles and how these bundles would be able to help us. Any questions so far?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving the reads from Firestore to Fire Storage, doesn't mean it goes the same, or Fire Storage is...
Cloud storage?
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously we need to take into consideration that if we are loading a file from cloud storage to our client apps, we need to pay for that. But the cost of that is nothing compared to the cost of hitting the server, or the Firestore server, and retrieving all the documents. That's why bundles were created, because the difference in costs is definitely considerable, right? So even if you're paying for retrieving the file from cloud storage, you would still be avoiding to have like dozens or even thousands of billable reads to the Firestore server, because you're still querying once a day the server, right? So with bundles, you don't really need to do that. You just load a file, and then the data gets added to the local cache of the Firestore SDK. But as Renuka mentioned, I still need to do a lot of stuff on the server side, because I need to create a cloud function that runs with the frequency that I want, create the bundle, get the data from Firestore, add it to a buffer, and then with that buffer, create a file, upload it to cloud storage, and making sure it's available for all of our clients.
It's too much work. I feel like that. It's too much work.
Who else thinks it's too much work, all of this?
See?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of hands raised. So obviously the Firebase team is always thinking about developers. The Firebase team is always thinking about how to make developers' life easier. So that's why, and I'm pleased to share this with you, because it's kind of new. There is a way to do this manually using an extension. You can use an extension for this. So the extension is called Firestore Bundle Builder, and it simplifies the process of adding Cloud Firestore data bundles to your application. So why don't we use it?
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Let's use the extension.
So how to use the extension? I don't know about that. Could you please explain us?
Absolutely. So using extensions is very, very easy. And hopefully after we are showing everything about extensions and how to use them and how easy it is for us to install an extension and take the most out of an extension, you'll be inspired to create your own extension. For that, you should attend the workshop tomorrow. Obviously, we're not focusing on this today. But let's take a look at this extension. So let's just use the extension. For that, we can go to extensions.dev.
Okay.
Does everybody see, or should I like zoom in? Is it better if I zoom in?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go to, excuse me, if you go to extensions.dev, here's the Firebase Extension Hub, where you can see all of the extensions, and you can find extensions to build an app quickly and easily. So you can explore all of the extensions. Here it explains why you should be using extensions. And extensions have a cost, because at the end of the day, extensions are cloud functions. So you will pay for the amount of times the cloud functions are invoked, and you will also pay for the stuff that the cloud functions are doing inside, which could be read or write to Firestore, for example, right? So let's go to all the extensions. And now that I'm seeing all the extensions, let's try to find the extensions that I'm looking for. So I can filter by categories. I can see all the extensions here.
There are so many extensions. I just see that.
Yeah, there are dozens of extensions. Yeah, I think these are too many extensions. It's never too many, because as developers, we are really, oh, look, these are 2 extensions that I built. Hey. As developers, we are going to take the most out of these extensions, and they're going to simplify our life, to be honest. So we can filter. For example, we know that the extension that we are going to use is a Cloud Firestore extension, so we can select Firestore, and these are all the extensions that are meant for Firestore. We can stream Firestore to BigQuery. We can use an email extension.
Do you have any question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, are all extensions free, or are they also paid extensions?
So as I said before, extensions are just really cloud functions that are configured by certain parameters. So you would still be paying for the number of invocations that that cloud function has. You would still be paying for the number of reads or writes that that cloud function does to a service like Firestore, for example. So there's no additional cost of using an extension. You only pay for like the same you would pay if you would be developing that functionality yourself.
But I think so if you use the extension, you need to be on the Blaze plan. That is definitely. And like if you want, like you can try it. You don't need to like a first time to pay. But if you are above that limit, then you need to pay. That's so. Just bear in that mind.
And
yeah.
Can I look into the code of the extension?
Absolutely, absolutely, you can. So every time you click on an extension, so for example, let's click trigger email from Firestore. Here you will see getting started, so how to use the extension, and probably with an example. So this extension, how does it work? Hopefully I'm not like, repeating myself from what the Firebase team will say tomorrow. This is not an extensions-focused workshop, but since we're talking about extensions and we want to make sure you attend the workshop tomorrow, let's talk a little bit more about that. So here we have a getting started. So this extension, for example, is like trigger email, and this extension allows you to send emails from your app without really needing to code the functionality yourself.
So
this extension.
Can you just add the which extension we are going to use for this demo?
Yes.
So could you please show us that what are the things I have to add into that basically?
Yes. So the extension that we're going to use for the demo is not this one,
Yeah.
obviously. If we go back to wait, you had a question.
Just question about the emulator. Can you have the extensions on the emulator?
Yes, absolutely. You can run the extensions using the Firebase emulator. So that way you don't really need to pay for testing out an extension because the emulator won't hit the server. And and that is actually something new. As a Firebase developer for the past 5 years, I constantly see Firebase updating stuff, adding new stuff. And I actually see the value every day of using new things that Firebase releases to developers. This is one of them. This extension hub was actually announced in the Firebase Summit of last year. I was there and I was like very excited about it. I was like, I need to build my own extension. Any other questions so far? No? Okay, so let's find the extension that we need. It's called Bundle Builder. So if we go down, we can find it. If not, we can always like search, and we can search for the bundle word. And here's the extension that we need, Firestore Bundle Builder. It was made by Firebase with the help of Invertase, of course. And here, this Firestore Bundle Builder will allow us to create bundles easily without as Renuka mentioned, going through all of the steps of creating a cloud function. I mean, obviously, you can use Firebase not only with cloud functions. You can use Firebase with your own backend. So if you do a backend, like a custom backend using, for example, Dart Frog, if you are Flutter developers and you want to create backends using Dart, you can obviously use Firebase with that. You can obviously create bundles from a Dart Frog server and upload them to cloud storage. You don't really need to create a cloud function. But the whole point of this is not to write a lot of server-side code, because you want to focus on Flutter, you want to focus on your app, and you want to focus on the features that you want to build instead of like doing manual work, like creating server-side code that will create the bundles, etc. If there's a solution that helps us, why not leverage that solution? Why not use it, right? So with this extension, how this extension works. So as we explained before, right, Firestore data bundles can make certain types of Firestore applications much faster and less expensive because we are creating a bundle, we are uploading it to a storage, it could be cloud storage, and then we are reading it from our apps, and we are not hitting the server, right? So there are a lot of examples that use bundles. So for example, if you go to Kara's Coffee, which is a example app, here's I think it's a web app actually, that uses some functionality, and here you will see an example of bundles for sure. Let's dive right into it. So here there are links to the documentation, right? So here's everything you need to know about like Firestore bundles and how to use them. Here's the code snippet that I shared in the presentation, which is how to create the bundles. And here's how to serve them using the CDN of Firebase hosting. And here's how you can load them to your client app. This would be a web client app. or Swift, Objective-C. Unfortunately, we do not have a Flutter example in the Firebase documentation, so I think Firebase needs to add a Flutter example of how to load data bundles in a Flutter client.
I think you can see the example for this in Flutterfire website.
Yes, in the Flutterfire website you can, but maybe a new tab here.
Yeah.
Flutter Dart, how to load a bundle. Anyways, so let's just use this bundle, right?
Yeah.
So how to use the extension? Okay, we can go to the official Firebase documentation, right? So this documentation allows us to know how to use this Firestore bundle builder extension, right? So this is an extension that allows us to create bundles. So to use this extension, you need to first create one or more bundle specifications in Firestore using the extension's admin dashboard. So this extension has an admin dashboard. I mentioned before that extensions are just cloud functions, right? But this extension also has an admin dashboard. So how does that work? It's a separate project. So we have the project, the GitHub code for the extension, and we have a separate project for the admin dashboard. So if we click on this link, I opened it in a new window, I didn't mean that. But if we click on this link, here we're going to go to the GitHub project for the admin dashboard for this extension. So in order to use this extension, we would need to clone this GitHub repository, install all the dependencies, create an .m file with your project ID, and then run the app. And that's exactly what I've done. So I don't know if I have the code here, but yeah, I'm actually running this local repository, and I will be able to access the admin dashboard. So here, I have the admin dashboard for the Firestore bundle builder, right? So in order to create a bundle, I have already created a couple of bundles just for the sake of testing purposes. I can click the Create Bundle button, and here I can start putting the data of the bundle that I want to create. So here's the bundle ID. Here is a client cache, which is, it specifies how long to keep the bundle in the client's cache. So for example, here, if we want to create a bundle for the ice creams, we would create a bundle ID. Last time we named it ice creams. And here in the client cache, if we want to make sure that this bundle lives on the client cache for a day, we just need to put the number of seconds that a day has, which is like 86,000. Same with server side, this is specifies how long to keep the bundle in Firebase hosting CDN cache in seconds. And here I want to make sure to add which documents, so which collection I want to create a bundle for, right? And maybe I can add parameters, maybe I can add certain queries in order to create a named query. So we have already created bundles. So if we go back to the list, we can see here that, let's go back to the list.
So I have one question, like once we have created this bundle, then how we can integrate in Flutter application? So. Okay,
here's the list. So once we create the bundle here with the extension, it will be available in cloud storage. Okay. And in order to see the bundle, by the way, here's our Firebase project, right? So in order to see the bundle, which here it is, here's the bundle that we've created. Yeah. It's just a file that has like a lot of data here. Yeah. We can see the specifications here in our Firestore database. So if we go to Firestore database and we go to the bundles collection, here we can see the specifications for the bundles that we have created and how long does it will live in the client cache, how long it will live in the server cache, and also the collection that we are querying, which is products in this scenario, right? So yeah, pretty much we've used the extension and now we have created bundles on the server side, which is amazing. But now we need to do the second step of the process, which is basically loading the bundle on our Flutter app.
So I think this is the code available on the Flutterfire website where you can get to know about how to use this bundle inside the Flutter application. So first you need to load the bundle, and then you need to add the functionality from where you can fetch the data from the cache or the server. So I have created a simple code in my application. Maybe I can explain into that.
Yep, let's go back to the demo and let's see how to load bundles.
Yeah, thanks. So here in this application, I have created this get bundle function here. And in that function, I am whatever Thomas has just shown us the where he has created the Firestore bundle, and that we are getting the link and where we have seen the data. So I'm using that link and fetching the data from that link basically. And once the data bundle is loaded, and then I will fetch the products. So what I have done for the demo purpose right now, so I have created two functions. One is from the get data from the server, and the other is the get data from the cache. So let me run the project.
If you can see there the code, it says that every 5 minutes it will actually get the data from the server or from the local cache. Obviously, with the example that we showed, like with all the data, we want to do it once a day. But really, for the sake of just showing this to you, this is the code that says 5 minutes, but then you can say like.
So I'm going to change some time here only for the demo purpose. What I have put it the time here. So right now it's 11:11. So I'm just changing here. And I will run the code again. Okay, once I log in, so you can see right now the data is coming from the cache. And after 5 minutes, because I have put it here as a condition, after the 5 minutes, it will get the data from the server. So every 5 minutes, it takes take the data from the server, and after that, whatever transaction is going there, it will fetch the data from the cache. So this is a simple demo how you can implement in the Flutter application, and I think it's pretty easy.
Yes. So if you want to use bundles, you would, instead of like get the data from the server, you would load the bundle like once a day or something like. I mean, you can configure the bundle to live in the client cache for the number of seconds that you want, right? But in reality, what will happen is that the bundle will load itself like once a day, and then we don't really need to hit the server. Obviously, in the first technique that we saw, that was not using bundles, just reading the data from the server once per day and then reading from the local cache, you would get the data from the server. But if you are actually using bundles, you don't really need to get the data from the server, because you will load the bundle and you will always get the data from the cache and not from the server. So yeah, the code, as Renuka mentioned, should be pretty easy from the Flutter side.
So now you can see here, I'm getting the data now from the server. Before that, we have seen that I'm getting a data from the cache. Now, because I'm changing the time, and it's showing us that now the data is coming from the server. So that's how you can manipulate your own thing, that how you want to adjust the time and how many times you want to take a data from the server, or how many times you want to take a data from the cache. So in our case, I think every day we are going to once a day we are going to cache the data from the server, and then we are using the cache, right?
Yeah. So the extension allows us to configure how frequently we want to generate a new bundle. So when we created the extension, created the bundle using the extension, we configured once a day, let's generate a new bundle. And on the Flutter side, once a day we can load the bundle, and then in the rest of the, anytime I need to create the data, it's going to be in the cache already.
That's great. But still, I'm having some question in my mind. Okay, we are loading the data from the bundles, right? But still, I'm having so many users, and I'm still thinking of that, how easily they can fetch the data from the Firestore. Do you have any other tips for that as well?
Yes, let's look at those right now, because this doesn't end here. Like, there's still some stuff that we can do in order to keep optimizing our app.
I think that Renuka has so many questions.
Well, I mean, if you are having like thousands of users, you need to make sure that the pricing goes down, but also the app performs well.
Yeah, definitely.
So, as we said, we are now loading data from bundles, and we want to make sure this works. And now that we've seen our code, and it works fine, what is our conclusion of using that? How this will impact my billing, right? So here's how, and again, I'm quoting a fantastic developer from Firebase called Mark Duckworth that works on the Firestore SDK. If we now have 30 monthly queries instead of 10,000 because we are only querying the Firestore server once per day using bundles, and we have 25 items per page with 3 pages loaded, if we do 30 times 25 times 3, we're going to see we only have 2,250 document reads. So if we go to the beginning, we had like 3,750,000 document reads. And now we only have 2,000 document reads on a monthly basis, which equals to 99.94 savings in number of billable reads. So at the beginning, we had this fear, right? Firebase will be okay for my app? Will Firebase be a good fit for my app? Or will it blow up my pricing? So if we do nothing, if we just read data from Firestore and we keep it as it is, it can really blow up my pricing. But Firebase doesn't want to blow up pricing for users. Firebase wants to be a valid option and an attractive option for us developers, right? So if we apply certain techniques, if we apply certain features that Firebase offers, we can save a bunch of billable reads. In this scenario that we propose, we are saving 99.94, almost like 99, almost everything. So it really has an impact on the price that we end up paying, right? So the short answer here is like, is Firebase a good fit for this kind of apps? If we don't apply any technique, if we don't apply any strategy, and if we just read data from Firestore and that's pretty much it, maybe not. But if you're using Firebase the correct way and you're applying certain techniques and you're applying certain features that Firebase offers, it can really be very, very, very cheap. It will scale automatically and we will end up paying almost nothing for an app that will be used by dozens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of users, which is quite amazing.
Yeah, no doubt that this is cheaper, but you still need to add the cost of the cloud storage, right?
Yes, so this is the build reads estimation. So this is how much we save for reads. Obviously, as I said before, and as you are pointing out, we need to take into consideration how much we need to pay for loading a file to every client app. If we go to the pricing, Firebase pricing calculator in the Firebase pricing website, you're going to see it's, trust me, very, very, very low. So that is why bundles were created, as I said before, because the number of reads that you save is a lot compared to the number of files that you would need to be loading per client. But yes, I mean, that's a good call. You still need to consider that each client will read a file from cloud storage, and you're going to be billed for that.
Yeah, because initially I would not have thought of that solution because it doesn't sound cheaper, I would say, to fetch files instead of going to a database, but seeing it like this makes sense.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been my first.
No, I mean, and it makes sense. Your reasoning also makes sense. But that's why Firebase created this. We can go, actually. So if you Google Firebase pricing, it really is very straightforward because you here have a price calculator, right? Place plan calculator. So here you have like cloud storage, and you will pay for one operation, which is downloads. And if you have about 2 million operations, it's no cost. So you can see that it doesn't have a lot of cost to download a file, for example. And then the number of gigabytes stored, gigabyte transfers. Again, like it's not going to be, like reading hundreds of thousands of documents from Firestore will be much more expensive than this, for sure. So, as I said before, like this is fantastic. We are saving a bunch of billable reads, which is amazing. And now maintaining the server in Firebase is going to be much cheaper. Yep.
So this makes
Yes. So if we only have like 10,000 monthly users, our cost will be basically zero because the Firebase pricing has a very, very attractive free tier. But if we have like 100,000 users, or if we have 1 million users, or 10 million users, that will blow up. So that's why there's this like preconception or comments, like if you talk with developers, most of them will say, oh, Firebase, if you have millions of users, it's going to blow up your pricing. So as we've seen, it depends on how you use it, right? So if you use certain techniques and if you use certain features that Firebase offers, that might not be the case. Maybe you still have millions of users, but you still have 99% of savings in number of billable reads if you apply the correct techniques and the correct strategies. Any other question? Yeah.
If you have data that updates infrequently but on an odd schedule, would it be possible to regenerate the bundle on write, or does it have to be on a fixed schedule?
It is my understanding that it has to be on a fixed schedule. But it's a good call, right? Like, what if we could generate a bundle anytime there's a new write? I think technically we could do it because you can create a cloud function that triggers every time there's a new write that will generate a bundle. I don't know if Firebase thinks it's meant to be for that case. Maybe you can ask that question tomorrow to the Firebasers. But I would say that it's technically possible. I don't know if it makes sense. It depends. Actually, it really depends on how frequent the data gets updated, right? If it gets updated in every time, you're not going to be generating bundles like every minute. Maybe it's not worth it. In this scenario, the data gets updated once a day, so it makes total sense to use bundles. Maybe even like if it were to get updated every 6 hours, it would still make sense to use bundles probably.
Can we create 2 instances of the Firebase extension there, and we can set up 2 different?
Yeah, you can create the number of bundles that you want with the number of configurations that you want. Yeah.
But I think they can ask this question tomorrow in the workshop.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move forward. Renuka said that she was still nervous about all of this, like Firestore, caching, etc. Why is that, Renuka?
Because the loading time, like I'm feeling like it's still, because I'm very popular, my ice cream shop is very popular. So I'm feeling like that because whenever you're selling or buying, I always keep everything in my mind, how much price I'm giving to them or how much price I'm. So I'm like that kind of person.
Yeah, so in order to be able to save a bunch of costs and in order to be able to not hit the server all the time, we loaded our cache with data, right? First, we loaded our cache with data from the server, from the Firestore server, and then we loaded our cache with bundles. So the cache is like loaded with data. And it's a valid concern. Could we end up overloading our local cache, right?
Okay, there is one person.
Yeah, I mean, and if you end up overloading our local cache, like if that happens, it can definitely slow down your app. Because even though you have all the data in memory, it should be faster. If the cache gets overloaded, it can be a problem, right? So we have the problem. Large amounts of data in the cache can slow down the app, and that's what we are doing. We're putting everything in the cache, saving a bunch of money in the process, but we can overload the cache. The solution is using client-side indexing to speed up queries against cache documents. So
I think it looks like that Firebase has a solution for my each question.
Yeah. I mean, Firebase thinks about developers. So any concern that we have, Firebase has thought about it. So why is client-side indexing? So who of you is familiar with database indexing? Most of you, if not all of you. So obviously, like indexing, if you're not familiar with it, it really enables us to be able to create very efficient queries. Okay, so client-side indexing brings indexing to the Firestore client SDK. So indexing, traditionally speaking, it was always on the server, right? You would create database indexes. So every time you hit the database in the server, you would create an efficient query because you created an index. So now we can create client-side indexes. So we can create indexes that are meant for the client, so that we can create indexes for the data that lives in the local cache. So we can create more efficient queries on the client side, right? This is something new to the client when it comes to Firebase, and it enables, as I said before, very, very efficient queries. Right, so it's pretty much very straightforward. The indexes that you would be creating on the server side, you would extrapolate them and duplicate them on the client side, so you would get all the benefits of creating indexes, not only on the server, but also on the local cache. Right? So Renuka, how to create client-side indexing on the Flutter app?
So you tell me, like I never use this in my application.
Okay, so
yeah, that's why I'm asking this question to you.
all right, so
Thomas.
there's pretty much two options here. So the first one is having a list of indexes and then using the set index configuration method, and then you would create a JSON string encoding these indexes and the field overrides, or you can just pass a JSON. So in the set index configuration from JSON in the Flutter Firebase library, you would use this function. You would pass a JSON, and you would, basically add indexes to the client-side app. These indexes could be a total replica of the indexes that you already have on your Firestore server. So if you want to access your Firestore indexes, I don't think we have any index created, but if you go to the Cloud Firestore, you go to indexes, now it's empty, but we could potentially create indexes. So for example, for the products, and we can create an index for, let's say, a field, which, whatever, like just random. When we create this index, it will be generated here, and if we go to our code here, we can see our Firestore indexes. Right now it's empty, but if we were to have data, we can load this data to our client side using this function here.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay, so we have covered all of the techniques and strategies that we wanted to cover in this workshop when it comes to pricing and when it comes to making sure our data loads quickly. This workshop had also another focus, which is security. Because when I speak with Firebase developers, or when I speak with the Flutter developers that want to use Firebase, these are the two main concerns that pop up, right? The first one is pricing and scalability. Yeah. Like, I know that Flutter, like Firebase scales automatically, that's great, but will this blow out my pricing? Well, the answer is, well, if you apply certain pricing strategies and techniques, that may not be the case, and it could be a good fit, and you wouldn't blow up the pricing. But then the other question that I frequently get is like, what about security, right? If I don't have like my own backend, if I don't have my own server, I'm querying the data directly from the client app, right? And that is something that's concerning because anybody.
I do have that concern, actually. I do have that concern as well. Because I'm
You're very concerned, Renuka.
Yeah, that's true. So I'm selling my products like the thing, and I'm getting money as well, like all these things that security is like a main concern for me then that time.
Well, it should be, and it should be for all of us, right? Security is one of the main concerns that we should have. And if we are using Firebase, and especially the Firebase SDKs for Flutter, our Flutter app is querying the database directly, without any like middleware, without any server-side code, which, you know, at first glance, if a developer is not used to using Firebase, is not used to serverless technologies, they might think, well, this is a concern, right? Security. If any client can access my database directly, this is a problem, right? So that's why Firebase created security rules. So when we asked at the beginning of this workshop if most of you have used Firebase, I think all of you, or maybe like 90% of you, raised their hands. So the follow-up question is, who of you have used security rules? Okay, it's a good number. I would like to see more hands raised, for sure.
But I think you are going to explain it to more people will start using the security rules, right?
Absolutely. So like a quick introduction, because most of you have, security rules allows you to configure certain rules so that the client app who's accessing Cloud Firestore will then need to go through these rules so that we can make sure our data is protected. If the rules are valid and we can bypass the rules, then we're able to fetch the data, we're able to write to Firestore. If not, we are unable to perform these queries. Actually, these rules, we are looking at Firestore here, but the rules do not apply exclusively to Firestore. We also can configure security rules for storage, right? So for example, for the bundles, we would be able to configure, I would think, because you're accessing a file, but maybe like for pictures or for whatever. Actually, bundles are meant for public data, so I misspoke there. But my point was that security rules can be applied not only to Firestore, but also to real-time database or to cloud storage. Let's try to implement some security rules for our app. We mentioned that we have an ice cream shop app, so users can access the ice creams. And ice creams are public, so we don't really need to configure security rules for ice creams because I want all of our users to be able to access these ice creams. But do you remember that we were adding ice creams to our cart?
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm adding the flavors as well. So I don't want anybody who can just add there from their side. Would you put
Yeah,
some
I mean,
security for
maybe
that?
like I don't want you to find out what ice creams do I consume. Like this is very personal data, very private data.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to know that I'm consuming very crazy ice creams. Like these are just for me, right? And your ice creams as well, like the ones that you consume, I don't really need to know them. Maybe I want to. Maybe I can configure a ice cream list or a wish list of ice creams or a cart that is public. So maybe I can share it with you, and
Yeah.
you can see, oh, these are the ice creams I will order from this shop.
Yeah.
So here it is. But maybe I want to make it private. So let's try to come up with certain rules. And here we're going to make it very, very simple in order to configure like public or private cards. So we can set this up in our project, and let's cover what these rules are. So first of all, I'm not going to explain the language for security rules because most of you have already used them. But in this particular scenario, we have a card collection, right? Each user has a card. So we're going to allow the user to read the data of that card if it's his or her own card or if it's a public card. The card has a field which is public, could be true or false, it's a Boolean. And then we can know if that card belongs to the user because for the cards collection, we have used the user ID as the ID for the card. It could also have been a field. It doesn't really matter, but we created this function which basically returns if the request auth is not null and if the UID of the request or the UID of the user matches the card ID. So if it matches, we know that it's my own card. If it's a public card, I will be able to read it, right? So here I will be able to read a card if it's public or if it's my card. And for writing, only if it's my card. So even if you have a card that is public,
Yeah.
I shouldn't be allowed to write to that.
Okay.
You want to share that with me so I can see it, not write it.
Okay.
And if your card is private, you don't want to share it with me, so I shouldn't be able to access that. And this is very important, guys, because if we are accessing the database from the client app, maybe like a malicious developer gets access to that, they can change the code because it's on the client side, they can run it, and they will be able to access certain information. So security rules are very important in order for us not to allow that to happen, right? So we're going to see how to create these security rules. It's very simple. And then I want to make sure these work, right? But I don't really want to test these security rules in a production environment because I want to first check if they work before deploying these rules to a production environment. I also don't want to do it in a test environment because I don't want to start generating reads or writes to my billable account. So we can test them using the Firebase simulator.
Okay, that's
right?
great.
And let's do that. So here we have our project, which I'm going to zoom in. Here we have our project. And here we have our rules here. So here we have our rules. Okay, so these rules are the ones that I mentioned before. So we have a function, its own card, and we have a function, public card, and then we have the rules for the card. We are able to read from the card if it's a public card or if it's my own card, and we are allowed to write it only if it's my own card. So how can we test all of this? Because we don't want to spend time like, creating a user, creating a card, adding items, making sure that I cannot access, like doing this manually, like interfacing with our client app, it takes time, right? So we can test, unit test these security rules using the Firebase simulator. So first of all, I need to set up the emulator, obviously. Here we have our code with the emulator running. And here we have a functions folder with, I can have functions. Here in this scenario, I only have a hello world function because we are not focusing on cloud functions in this workshop. But here we have a file called rules.ts, which will actually load our testing environment, and in this scenario, we're going to be able to test the security rules. In this example here, I'm using like the Firebase official documentation, and I'm using Mocha in order to test my rules, and this is a TypeScript file, but we could use like Jest, we could use JavaScript, we could use Python. I don't know if we can use Python because I'm using this library here, and it's a Node.js library. I don't know if they have another like runtime available, to be honest. But all of this is taken from the Firebase documentation, right? So this is not a mystery at all. Like if we search here, so security rules. Here we have the chapter in order to test the security rules. And here Firebase suggests that we should use the local emulator in order to test the security rules. In order to start the emulator, Firebase emulator start, and you can pass the only flag and pass Firestore, but if you only use Firebase emulator start, you can turn on all of the emulators. And here you can start building unit tests for the rules. And actually, there's a nice video that explains this. This is a kind of outdated because it uses the Firebase SDK version 8, but here we are running the local unit test using the version 9 of the JavaScript SDK, so they haven't updated the tutorial in YouTube. But here we need to import the things that we need in order to test our rules, which is, like, for example, assert fails, which tests that a rule is failing, or assert succeeds, which tests that a rule is succeeding, right? And after that, we can load initialize our test environment with a demo project ID and reading the firestore.rules file, and then we're good to go, right? So let's show some of the rules that we've created in order to test this. So the first rule that I want to test is that unauthenticated users shouldn't be able to access the card collection, right? So here we write a rule that it should not allow unauthenticated requests to read items from a cart. So in this rule, I'm generating an unauthenticated context, right? So this is mocking an unauthenticated context, which is like I'm doing requests to Firestore from unauthenticated source, and this will fail, right? So assert fails will make sure that this query here, getDoc from Firestore, will fail. Then I'm creating these rules as well. Here, I'm creating a rule that says it should allow only signed-in users to read their own card or public cards. So here, instead of like an unauthenticated context, I will create an authenticated context, right? And here I'm passing Alice as the user ID, UID. And here I'm doing Firestore because it's the context of an authenticated user accessing Firestore. Here I'm creating test data. So we are creating documents in the database for testing, bypassing the security rules. So here, with security rules disabled, I'm creating a context, and here I'm setting up documents. So I'm creating a card for Alice, I'm creating a card for Bob, I'm creating a card for Bernard, and these cards are going to be private, and this one for Bernard is going to be public, right? So the first thing that I want to test is that Alice, the user with the UID Alice, is able to read its own card. So here I'm going to use the assert succeeds function, because when this query happens, since I'm querying for the Alice card with the Alice user, it should be okay, right? But if there's a signed-in user that is reading another user's card, this should fail. So this query here, getDoc card Bob, should fail. So that's why I'm using the assert fails, because Alice here shouldn't be able to read Bob's card, because Bob's card is public, is false. It's not public, it's private. Any questions so far? On the other hand, if I was Alice and I wanted to read Bernard's card is public, right? So if I wanted to, as a sign-in user, read another's card, which is public, if as Alice I'm going to read Bernard's card, it will success. It will be assert succeed, right? And when it comes to writing, even though I authenticated as Alice, if I wanted to set a document of the card with as Alice, this will succeed. But if I wanted to update or write a card with another ID, for example, Bob, as Alice, this will fail, okay? So I created a set of like very, very simple rules, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing mysterious, and I need to turn on my emulator, so that's what I did here. If I execute Firebase emulator start, this will turn on the emulator. So the Firebase emulators are running, which is great. And if I wanted to see this running, I can go to here, localhost 4000, and this is the Firebase emulator running. And here we can see the logs. All of this is running, all good. And let's try this out. So let's go to another CLI, and here we can run npm run tests. So let's run this. And here we can see the results of the tests. So right now, these 3 tests are passing. So the test that it says it should only allow should not allow unauthenticated users to read items, assert fails is passing, right? It should only allow sign-in users to read their own card or public card. This is passing as well, because Alice can read its own card, and Alice cannot read Bob's card. And Alice should be able to read Bernard's card because it's public. But what if I put here assert succeeds? Here, the rules should fail, because here I'm making sure that Alice can access Bob's card. But in reality, Alice should not access Bob's card, because here in the rules, I only allowed to read if it's a public card or if it's your card. But Bob's card is not public, and it belongs to Bob, not to Alice. So when I run this, we will see that one of the rules is failing, and here it says, Firebase error, false for get at line 7 and at line 28. So we can go to the Firestore rules at line 28, and we can see that this line here is failing. And this is because the user is not able to read the card. So this will make sure that if somebody is reading cards from a client application, from a Flutter application, they won't be able to read another user's card, or if it's not public, right? Because the security rules are applying to them, right? If I were to read from a server, then the server bypasses the security rules, but from the client side, they do not. So if I go back to asserting it fails and I run the rules again, everything will pass. The same with write. Here, Alice is able to write to her own card, but if Alice wants to write to Bob's card, it will fail. So if I put here assert succeeds, here, and I run this, this should fail, and this failed because it's permission denied, because Alice doesn't have permission to write to Bob's card, because in the rules, they're only allowed to write if it's your own card. So I cannot write ice creams to another user's card, only to my card. So we can go back to assert fails, run our tests, and make sure this pass. So with security rules, we make sure that no other user can access another user's card, unless it's public, of course. And with testing of security rules, we can make sure we add all the possible scenarios here and run a file and run the tests. In this case, I'm using Mocha, but you can use whatever testing framework you want. And I can make sure that all of my edge cases when it comes to security are covered. So I don't have a application that will be like possible to bypass security rules. So that is very important. So any questions so far? This one?
Authenticated context with
Oh.
name Alice.
Yeah.
So is it only based on the username currently, or do we actually have some kind of authorization tokens converting that?
This is for the user ID, not the username. So here you can see it. Like you can use authenticated context or unauthenticated context in order to implement testing cases that mimic authentication states, right? So it's like mimicking Firebase authentication. And then I didn't explain a lot of this, but after the tests are done, I'm running test_m.cleanup so that I don't leave anything in the memory. And before each test, I'm clearing the Firestore so that we make sure that we start fresh from the very beginning. There was a question.
Could you please go back to the file that defines rules, so Firestore rules?
Yeah.
So the UID and card ID. So are you, well, you haven't gone through this. Is the card ID the same as UID? In general, there are some rights elsewhere in the application that assign user ID to card ID or make them.
Yeah, so in this example, since every user is going to have only one card, well, Renuka and me decided that we are going to use the same UID for the card ID. But it doesn't need to be that way. Like maybe you add the user ID as a field of the document and not as the ID of the document. If that's the case, you can still configure this. Like it's exactly the same almost. But instead of like passing the card ID here, you would pass like, you know, resource.data.userid. Like this, you know?
And the UID base is generated by Firebase?
The Firebase authentication, yeah. Yeah.
So it's supposed to be in the same unique.
Yes. Yes, correct. No worries. Any other questions? Anything else? Okay.
I think you have given me the answer for each question. I think you should do the partnering with me in my shop as you have done with the VGV, right? So you are a really good fit for my company, like, right? For to sell my products. Like you are saying to help me to do the secure my application. You are just taking the care of my pricing plan, everything.
Yeah, so with these examples that we've
Thomas.
seen, yeah, so with these examples that we've seen, now our application will be much more cheaper,
Yeah,
right, when it
yeah.
comes to pricing. It will be faster because of the client-side indexing, and will be very secure because of the Firebase security rules, and it will be very easy to test the security rules using the testing framework that Firebase offers. So,
There's also Firebase app check.
Yeah.
yes.
Is it something on top of this?
No, that is like kind of different. Firebase App Check is a newer service that Firebase offers. We didn't include it here because, you know, like we were considering including App Check here, but we
I
thought
think
we were looking at that. Yeah, first of all, like time constraint, and second, it's very, very, very easy. So if you go to the Firebase documentation, you know, and you search for App Check, configuring App Check really should take not longer than like a couple of hours. And I'm not exaggerating here. So if you go to AppCheck and you go to, I want to see if we can, okay, Flutter. So here, AppCheck will allow you to basically set up a service that allows you to make sure that only trusted sources are accessing your Firebase backend, right? So if you have a Flutter app and you want to make sure that that Flutter app only accesses your Firestore database, you can configure AppCheck, and that will make sure that only this trusted source is accessing your Firestore database. Or it could be also like, I think it's also like Cloud Functions, and there are like a real-time database, I think. I don't remember by heart like which services are allowed to configure AppCheck, but here it's just a matter of like adding the AppCheck library to your app. So you do Flutter pub add Firebase AppCheck, you run it, and you initialize it, like in a configuration file. In the same file, before calling Firebase initialize app, you know, you initialize AppCheck, and it's really it, and it's done. And it provides an additional layer of security. So definitely worth it, because it's very easy. It's another layer of security if it's something that you want, right? Because maybe you say, oh, no, my Firestore backend will not only be accessed by my app, it will be accessed by other sources are clients because I want to offer it to the world. So maybe it's not. But if you know that only certain trusted sources are going to access it, maybe it's worth it to configure app check. It's just another layer of security that will enhance the security of your app. So it definitely makes sense. But since it was like time constrained and since it's like extremely easy, we didn't add it to the slides, but we were considering it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like adding the library, initializing app check before the Firebase initialize app. After calling Firebase initialize app, and that's it.
Does it have anything with the integrity API or these are two separate things?
Sorry, can you repeat?
So there's a plane integrity API, like for checking whether the Android application is the one that you publish and so on. So is this somehow like plane integrity API, or this is just totally separate thing?
Do you know that?
Okay.
It should be separate.
Okay.
It should be separate because in reality you can add Firebase app check to a website if you wanted to, you know. So it's a standalone Firebase service. You can actually like have your Flutter app connected to a custom backend, like as I said before, Dart Frog, for example. But you can still use app check to make sure that only your server is accessing, you know, certain Firebase services, like not your server, or like your app, your Flutter app is accessing that server that you set up, and only that Flutter app. So Firebase, obviously, you guys already know it, but you can use it as a whole, as a suite of services, but you can use also certain Firebase services as a standalone service and have your custom backend. That's also possible. And I think AppCheck is one of them.
I have a question regarding Firestore and data statistics. We would like to generate statistics on a regular basis, like we would like to iterate over the users collection and calculate the average age of our users. So every week or something like this. And we have many use cases. Which approach would you choose? Would you choose BigQuery, or would you write your own cloud functions that will be executed?
Yeah.
Or something?
So what I would do probably, obviously, like it depends, right? But I would use this. So you have an extension that allows you to stream Firestore to BigQuery, and you can configure like the frequency and all of that. So and it's almost used like almost 50,000 times, so it's kind of cool. But yes, installing this extension will allow you to stream data to BigQuery, and then you can do all of that statistics on BigQuery.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
My question about the bundle file, if we regenerate the bundle file, our users get data immediately, or they should wait?
They should load the bundle on the Flutter app
Yeah.
before accessing that data.
They don't should wait until 24 hours pass to get new data?
Yes, I mean it depends on how you configure your bundle, right? Like it can be configured for like once a day to reload the bundle.
Is set for once a day?
Yeah.
But any accident, for example, our content team had the data by mistake and wrong data, we need our user get data immediately, and I need the update data. There is any solution that triggers something that will notify the user to get new data or not? It is set once a day.
So maybe you have like mistaken data in the bundle and you want
Yeah.
the bundle to be loaded again? Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm not sure. Like I would say that maybe you can do things in order to prevent that to happen. Like or maybe you can do things in order to, if that happens, make sure you can do that. So for example, you can configure. I'm just thinking out loud here. This may not be the most optimal solution, but you may configure like a remote config variable that you can change that value in real time. So maybe you can have like an if statement, and the value of that remote config variable could be like true if everything is okay, or false like if everything is not okay. So if it's true, you're not going to load the bundle again. If it's false, then you force the users to load the bundle again. Maybe you can do something like that in order not to generate a new version of the app, but to be able to load bundles like in a more manual way, not only configuring time. But this is just an example that just occurred to me, but I'm not sure if that's the most optimal. I would ask the Firebase team about that. maybe, yeah, that's a good one. Actually, better maybe.
You can use Firebase remote config for to push. You can just give a
Yep. Yeah, so I think we're approaching the end of the workshop. Thank you so much from me and Renuka.
Yeah,
We're both
thank
organizers of GDG Montevideo and GDG London.
Yes.
And these are our Twitter handles in case you want to follow us. We're also on LinkedIn, so let's keep in touch. And yeah, thank you so much for being with us today.